Before I tell you this story, take a moment to think about what it means when loyalty starts to sound like control, when love comes with contracts and family calls you unstable just because you stopped obeying. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about what happens when you finally stop apologizing for being strong.
So lean in.
Because the moment you think peace is on the table, that's usually when the knives are too. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and drop a black heart in the comments if you believe power should never have to ask for permission. I stood before the mirror, fastening the clasp of a pearl drop necklace that used to belong to my grandmother. I told myself tonight might mark a new beginning. After nearly a year of cold meetings and polite silence, my parents had finally asked me to dinner at the family estate. Just the three of us, no board members, no lawyers. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to hope this was a peace offering. Maybe we could talk like family again instead of opponents. I shrugged into my charcoal coat just as my phone vibrated across the dresser. 3 words flashed on the screen. Call me now. The message was from Darren Kells, my attorney, and one of the few people I still trusted. My stomach tightened as I pressed dial. He answered immediately, his voice flat and urgent. Mara, they filed it this morning. An emergency motion. Your parents are asking the court to declare you unfit to manage the Langston Foundation. For a second, the air left my lungs. My coat slipped from my hands onto the hardwood floor. What? They've included statements and affidavits, claims that you've been erratic, distracted, suffering from stress-related judgment lapses. It's not talk anymore. They want legal control. I froze, my mind running backward through every polite gesture of the last few weeks. My mother's warm invitation. Just dinner, sweetheart. Let's talk about the foundation's future. My father's measured smile during the last board review, the one I'd mistaken for forgiveness. None of it was reconciliation. It was choreography. They planned this, I whispered. Darren didn't disagree. Yes. And they're moving fast. On the kitchen counter, a box of pecan honey tarts sat untouched, the dessert I'd bought from the bakery near the art museum, my mother's favorite. Now the box looked ridiculous, a gift meant for people already preparing to erase me. I sank onto the bench by the door, phone clutched in both hands, heartbeat drumming in my ears. That dinner invitation wasn't peace. It was bait, and I'd almost walked straight into their trap. 3 days earlier, my mother's voice had floated through the line, smooth and affectionate. Baby, come to supper. Just us. No tension, no board talk. Let's dream again. It had sounded like healing, like a thread tying something broken back together. I wanted it so badly that I ignored the unease that followed. I even stopped at Laverne's bakery, the one she used to take me to on Saturday mornings, and bought the same tarts she'd sneak onto my plate when I was little. But now, remembering that call, the sweetness turned bitter. Her kindness had been rehearsed, her warmth strategic. They hadn't wanted my company. They wanted my compliance. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the bakery box. The smell of sugar and butter hung in the air, mocking me. It wasn't just dessert anymore. It was evidence of how easily hope had made me foolish. That night, I met Darren in his uptown office. The city outside glittered like it was indifferent to everything breaking inside me. He slid a heavy folder across the desk, his expression measured but grim. Read it all, he said quietly. I opened it. The words at the top blurred before coming into focus. Petition for emergency control of the Langston Foundation, filed by Raymond and Delora Langston. My parents' names. On legal paper. Against me. Each page was worse than the last, clinical accusations disguised as concern. Erratic decision-making. Emotional instability. Difficulty handling pressure. Attached were statements from people I'd mentored, trustees I'd helped promote, even an executive assistant who'd once cried in my office when her mother died, now claiming I'd been disconnected and forgetful. The words didn't sound like me, but I could hear my parents' cadence in every line. Darren exhaled. They're not acting alone. 2 of the major donors have already signaled support. They want reassurance. Familiar hands at the wheel. I pressed my palm flat against the folder as if I could crush it. So they trade vision for appearances. I'm their liability now. He didn't sugarcoat it. If the court grants them temporary control, your accounts will freeze within days. You won't even be able to authorize payroll. This is already in motion, Mara. The bitterness in my throat burned. All those years, late-night fundraising calls, art residencies built from nothing, the youth programs that saved kids from the streets, reduced to a rumor of instability. I looked down at my own name stamped in black ink across the petition. My legacy, rewritten by the two people who taught me to fight for it. I steadied my voice. Then we don't beg. We build our case. Darren nodded. Good. You'll need every scrap of evidence, every report, every clean evaluation. When I left his office, the city air was sharp against my face. I knew sleep wouldn't come. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table with the lights dimmed and reread the petition until the pages stopped feeling like paper and started feeling like armor. I thought of the small humiliations I'd ignored, my father cutting me off mid-sentence during board reviews, finishing my presentations as though I were a nervous intern, my mother's soft chuckle when I corrected her in front of staff. Don't mind Mara, she's been overworking again. Everyone had laughed politely. I'd laughed too, desperate to keep the peace. It hadn't been peace. It had been erosion. They'd been preparing this for months, sanding away my credibility one smile at a time. By Thursday afternoon, I forced myself back into the foundation's office, even though every inch of the glass building now felt different, like the walls themselves were whispering. People smiled too politely, their eyes darting just a moment too long. I held my chin high anyway, clutching folders that had started to feel like shields instead of paperwork. My parents' petition had cracked something inside me, but it hadn't broken me. Not yet. I was compiling reports for Darren when a faint knock came at my door. It was Ryland Drew, one of the youngest analysts in our finance wing, barely 24, quiet, always early. He lingered in the doorway, shoulder stiff. Miss Langston, he murmured, voice shaking, I think you should see this. He held out a folded sheet of paper like it was burning his fingers. I reached for it, and his eyes flicked toward the hallway before he backed away. Please don't say where it came from. Then he disappeared. I unfolded the page. It was a printed email from our internal server. Subject: Transition Planning. Once we assume interim oversight, incentive disbursements will be released accordingly. Delora Langston. The message was short, clean, and devastating. Once we assume interim oversight. Not if. When. Bonuses promised for loyalty. Bribery disguised as administration. I stared at it until the letters blurred. This wasn't about concern for my health or leadership. This was premeditated theft of authority, reputation, legacy. I pressed the sheet flat against my desk. For months, I'd told myself the odd glances, the hesitant greetings, the how are you holdings up. Whispers were all in my head. But here it was, black and white proof. And Rylan, overlooked, soft-spoken Rylan, had chosen to bring it to me. He could have stayed quiet. He could have taken their promise money. Instead, he'd risked his position to hand me the threat I needed. Something inside me steadied. If one young analyst could stand up in silence, then I had no excuse to crumble. I slid the email into a folder labeled evidence, sealing the first crack in their lie. That night, I didn't wait for another call from Darren. I drove straight to the estate under a bruised purple sky, my headlights cutting through the long driveway like knives. Inside the study, my parents sat side by side, firelight softening their features into something deceptively human. My mother looked up, voice smooth as silk. Mara, we never wanted this to turn hostile. You've done remarkable work. But everyone reaches a point where they must let go. We just want to help you exit gracefully. My father leaned forward, his tone calm and patronizing. Better to step down quietly before people start asking questions. We can preserve your dignity, sweetheart. Mercy, that's what this is. The words sliced through me. I stared at them both, feeling the old ache of wanting to believe they meant well. Then I spoke. You filed a motion behind my back. You told the court I was unfit. That's not mercy. That's betrayal. My voice didn't shake. And I have the receipts. My mother's smile flickered. My father's jaw locked. For the first time, they didn't look like strategists. They looked cornered. I didn't stay another second. I turned and walked out, my heels echoing against the marble floor, pulse pounding like a war drum. By the time I reached the car, the fear had burned away. All that was left was precision. If they wanted war, they were about to learn how quietly I could fight. Back in my downtown office, I stayed long after midnight. The city had gone quiet, but my desk had turned into a command center. Every surface was buried under binders, flash drives, and color-coded folders. This wasn't a workspace anymore. It was a war room. I started with the medical evaluations, 2 independent doctors, both confirming what I already knew. No signs of cognitive or psychological decline. Perfect health. I scanned each signed report into a digital file labeled Exhibit A. Then came the numbers. 3 years of financial statements that told a story no one could twist. Steady growth, rising endowments, an expanding youth arts program in 5 cities. Every metric screamed stability and competence. Exhibit B. Next, client letters, handwritten thank you notes from artists, educators, and donors. People who'd seen me work, who'd watched me lead. Exhibit C. When fatigue pressed down, I forced myself to play the recording from last year's Cultural Equity Conference, where I delivered a 40-minute keynote with no script. I listened to my own voice fill the speakers, strong, sure, unwavering. The applause at the end reminded me who I was before the lies started. By the time dawn filtered through the blinds, I had built an arsenal of proof, so clean it gleamed. Darren arrived just after sunrise, his tie loose, eyes scanning the fortress I'd assembled. You did all this overnight? I nodded. They wanted evidence? I'll give them evidence. He flipped through the binders, then looked at me with something close to pride. This is airtight. But be ready, they'll fabricate stories, coach witnesses, stage theatrics. They always do. I took a breath and steadied myself. Numbers don't tremble when questioned. He smiled faintly. Then let's make sure the truth gets the microphone. When the hearing date arrived, the courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and cold air, like judgment had its own temperature. I walked and dressed in black, the color of control. Across the aisle, my parents sat together, framed in soft cream tones, pretending to be the picture of sorrowful duty. Their lawyer rose first, voice dripping with practiced compassion. This is not about ambition, he said solemnly. It's about care. My clients are loving parents concerned for their daughter's well-being. Every word was polished deception. Pity disguised as virtue. Then Darren stood. No theatrics, no anger. Just facts. Your Honor, he began, sliding a binder forward. My client has undergone 2 professional evaluations confirming full mental and emotional stability. No impairment. No disorder. He opened another binder. 3 consecutive years of financial growth, top-tier donor attention, and community expansion, all documented and independently verified. He placed a 3rd binder on the table. And these, he said, voice sharpening, are records of unauthorized payments, $15,000 to a Shell advisory firm and $9,200 to a consultant abroad, both approved by the petitioners, disguised as legitimate expenses. The room fell silent except for the judge flipping pages. His brow furrowed. When he finally looked up, his voice was cold steel. You accuse your daughter of incompetence while misusing her foundation's funds? A murmur rippled through the gallery. My mother's hands clenched. My father stared at the floor. For the first time, the power shifted. Their composure cracked like porcelain. And I knew this wasn't the end of the fight. It was the beginning of their fall. When the judge's gavel struck, the sound echoed through the chamber like a door slamming shut on everything they'd built against me. The petition is dismissed, he said firmly, and this court will open an independent review of the financial discrepancies presented today. The sentence landed like thunder. My parents didn't move. My father's jaw twitched. My mother blinked too slowly, her face trained into serenity, but trembling at the edges. They'd wanted to strip me of power, but instead they'd stripped themselves of credibility. By evening, the Foundation's board had called an emergency session. The mood was electric with tension. I sat at the head of the long glass table, Darren beside me, while the members shifted uneasily in their seats. One by one, he laid out the evidence, the bribery email, the illicit transfers, the false medical claims. Each document hit the polished surface like a verdict. The same board that once tiptoed around my parents now stared at them with quiet disbelief. When the final page landed, the vote was immediate, unanimous. My parents were removed from all positions of influence. The silence that followed was heavy and clean. My mother finally broke it. Her voice trembled just enough to sound almost human. "We only wanted what was best for you." I met her eyes, my tone even. "No, you wanted what was safe for you. I built something brave. You tried to cage it." Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. My father looked down, the illusion of authority draining from his posture. I signed the official removal forms with a steady hand. The pen didn't shake once. When the meeting adjourned, people stood, not out of fear, but respect. For the first time, the weight of the room was mine to carry without apology. 2 weeks later, at precisely 9 a.m., I walked back into the same boardroom. Every seat was filled. The air felt lighter, expectant. As I entered, the board members rose silently. It wasn't ceremony. It was recognition. I took my place at the head of the table, the seat that had once felt too heavy, and this time it fit perfectly. "This foundation," I said, letting my voice carry, "was built on resilience, not inheritance. From this moment forward, betrayal has a cost, family or not." No one spoke. They simply nodded, some with relief, others with quiet conviction. When the meeting closed, I didn't linger. I walked the long corridor toward the corner office that used to belong to my parents. The blinds were drawn, the desk empty, the space stripped bare. I paused for a moment, feeling nothing but clarity. That emptiness wasn't loss. It was release. I turned away and walked toward the sunlight pouring down the hallway, my heels clicking in rhythm with my heartbeat. Everything they'd tried to erase, I had reclaimed. Everything they'd tried to own, I had defended. And as the morning light touched my face, I finally understood. Legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what survives you. I used to think blood meant loyalty, that family would always be the safest place to fall. But now I know better. Sometimes the people who share your name will be the first to bet against you, the first to test your strength, and the last to admit they lost. When I walked out of that boardroom, I didn't walk away from family. I walked back into my power. So if you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or quietly replaced by the people who are supposed to stand beside you, remember this. You don't have to beg for a seat at the table you built. You can take it back. Because legacy isn't given. It's earned one bold decision at a time. If you felt that comeback in your spirit, tap that like button, share this story with someone who's reclaiming their voice, and don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful stories of revenge, redemption, and rise.